Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman, and this is the Roberts Fish Paco. This one here is in Roberts RFT2 construction, but the majority of this review is going to be about the board, the Roberts Fish Paco. Coming into summer, we're coming into fish time, and coming into time where wetsuits come off, board shorts, bikinis, and super fun waves, and you want to have a board that's going to work like on a softer day, but if you do get like a tide switch or the swell pumping up and it's going to be good waves, you also want to have that same board and have it work. And this board is a good all-around fish style shortboard that's going to work in a wide variety of waves. You know, anything from just above total gravel to overhead surf, and the Paco is going to work well. And we were able to ride it quite a bit, as you can see in the messed up brownness of the wax. We got to ride this board a ton, and just super fun in a variety of waves. Looking at this board, this is my own board. I'm 6'2", and about 215, 220 pounds, and this is a 5'11" at 40 liters. And this size worked really good for me. Looking at the design, you can tell, obviously, compared to a full-on fish, like a list-style fish with a big nose and super wide tail, that this board is a lot more performance-oriented. The nose is pulled in more, the width of the board is more moderate, and then the tail is pulled in as well. I mean, if there's a pre-existing board out there that you could compare this board to, like similarity-wise, like a board that probably everybody surfed, would be a Lost Round Nose Fish. And so this is a very similar style board to that board, and in the variety of waves and like the huge range of waves that you can surf it in compared to the Lost Round Nose Fish. I would say that this board is looser than that board, and a lot of that looseness comes from the overall outline of the board and Roberts rockers and concaves, but especially right back here, there's a big, deep double concave in the back of the board, and then there's this big raised, not a hard spine, but a soft bump right here in the back of the board, like right in front of the fins. And what that does is that it really allows you to roll off of that hump in the middle of the board, and it's just almost like a mountain right here. And it just makes the board roll really easily through the turns. So this board, when you're doing tight turns in the pocket, it's super loose. But then also when you want the ability to draw out a longer turn, you can get up off of that hump in the back of the board and that spine in between the double and get forward on the board into a single concave, and the board really takes off. So the combination of those two areas, the concave area and then this double with the belly in the middle of it, I guess would be an easier way to say it, but it's definitely noticeable when you go across the board. It makes the board super loose in the turns. Robert has this board set up, the fin box placement on this board, standard placement is a tri-fin. And then he has what's called a tighter cluster on the fins, on the placement. So we've learned in some other videos that when you take this cluster, like basically the front fins and the back fin, and you move them closer together, it makes the board more pivotal and looser. And then if you take this cluster and spread it further apart, like, and this is just, you know, basically where the boxes are on the board, it makes the board draw turns out better. It makes it more locked in on a high speed, longer radius turn. So by taking these boxes and pulling them in together, it does the same thing that having this bottom shape here does, and that is making the board really loose when you want it to be. You can really feel that in the turns, and the board becomes really loose when you're doing that. And the board, the whole design of this board is tuned in really well to work with a twin fin and a trailer. And some people are like, oh no, I'm not a twin fin guy, but until you try it again, a lot of those people like grew up and had really bad twin fins in the 70s and 80s, but until you try a twin fin again, like, don't knock it off and say that it's not something that's for you, because it ends up being something that you could push super hard on in the bottom turn and get a lot of forward drive out of with these big forward fins. And then having just a little finger trailer in the back when you're coming off the top of the wave, it's really easy to pivot off of the top of the wave. Even though you have such big fins, you wouldn't think that the big fins would pivot, but by that point you're on this little tiny fin, so it allows you to release the tail a lot better in the turns. So I ended up using the twin and the little finger trailer quite a bit on this board. I also rode it as a straight twin in smaller waves, and I would say overall this was my favorite fin setup on this board. The only time I didn't like it was in more critical backside surfing, like where you're just free falling into the wave and with your hand, grabbing onto the rail as well. And a lot of times having just this little finger, the fin would blow out and you would end up like sliding out when you were dropping down the wave. Ended up for those conditions running it like as a straight thruster, like an even thruster with a set of Roberts larges, and that worked really well in those type of conditions and gave you a lot more control on the drop. For everything else, I ended up riding this fin setup and just loving it. I went to a quad. I liked it. It was good, but overall really liked the twin plus the trailer the best. And then in those challenging like backside conditions, just going with a straight thruster. I also rode it as a straight thruster in front side like everyday conditions, and it worked really well. But I ended up liking this one a little bit better just because it had more speed and like more push out of the, like more spring out of the turns. And these fins right here, these are the Futures T1s. And a lot of these boards you're going to see come with Futures boxes, so that's the fin you would want to get. If you ended up getting one with FCS2 boxes, you could put the MR TFXs in here, and that would be very similar to this setup. So looking at the Paco, you know, what is this board for? It's a great one board quiver. If you're looking to just get one board and just nail it for a variety of conditions, you can go down to really small surf with this. I'm not going to say that you can ride it in ultra gravel, like something that you're riding like the ultra wide boards in, but you can ride it in pretty small surf, especially if you're a good surfer, like an athletic, active, driving surfer. You could ride this thing in tiny waves. If you want something that has more built-in glide and ultra small surf for the Roberts boards, you'd be looking more at his model called the Pool Toy. But anything, you know, above knee high and up, you can ride this board basically as your only board. You can add other boards to it, but it's going to work in a lot of different conditions. You know, again, looking at the dimensions on this board, 5'11", 21, and this one's 2 and 15/16. But again, like 21 wide. Well, that's wide, you know, for a lot of people that ride 18 and 7/8, but it's actually not all that wide for me riding a 5'11" in a variety of surf. And Roberts, he's very honed in on not making the boards too wide. Like he stays away from stuff that's ultra wide because he really wants to retain that lively rail-to-rail feel. Like when you're pumping the board, he wants to have a lively feel and a fast feel, edge to edge, and when you're pumping speed on the wave. And I've noticed on a lot of his boards, as you're getting above 21, the increments start going smaller and smaller and smaller rather than continuing to go to 22 and 23. And the reason he's doing that is just to maintain that liveliness and that quickness in the edge to edge when you're pumping speed on the board. So a quick little hit on the construction of this board. This is an RFT2. RFT, which is the Roberts Flex technology, has been around for a while, and this is an updated version of it. RFT2 is a stringerless ultralight EPS blank with a carbon reinforcement the whole length of the bottom of the board until you get to the tail, and then you go nothing in the tail just to give you a little bit more flex at the back of the board. And then also a carbon strip right here underneath where your front foot would be. Underneath that, you've got that unidirectional carbon with reinforcing fiberglass threads in there, and then underneath that you have a layer of 6 ounce, a layer of 4 ounce, then the foam, and then on the bottom you have another layer of 6 ounce. So a lot of fiberglass and carbon and reinforcements in this board makes it a really durable board, but also it makes it light and it makes it a good amount of flex and spring, like lively spring out of the turns. It's a little bit more expensive, but it ends up giving you a more durable deck, a considerably more durable deck than a standard PU board, and also the lightness of the board. So a lot of my boards, because I'm riding like foamier boards, they end up being, when you make them like in a standard glass schedule, they end up being pretty heavy. This board at 40 liters, it ends up being like not really, probably about the same weight or lighter than like a 32 or 30 liter board. So it's called the RFT2 construction, and that's available. It's exclusive from Roberts. So it's a Roberts Fish Paco, great all-around summer board. It's going to handle a really wide range of conditions. If you have any questions about it, give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can check it out online on our website, realwatersports.com/surfing.